So a few days ago, I was scrolling through Twitter, like you do, and I came across this post by a guy named Sexton, who is a book reviewer and blogger. And this man says, with his full chest, that receiving an ARC copy of a book and not reviewing it is theft. If it's not legally theft, then it is ethically theft, and you should be ashamed of yourself. So Jeff went on to clarify that although the fact that he made the post in the first place was prompted by an author friend of his complaining about the percentage of ARCs that he'd handed out that actually got reviews, that the opinions were his, not his author friends, and he then went on to insinuate that even if an author had that opinion, and he seems to insinuate that most of us do, we wouldn't be able to say those things out loud because PR. So over the next few days, people from the book community started pushing back. Authors, agents, publishing houses, readers, reviewers, pretty much everybody was dogpiling on this guy, telling him the myriad of ways in which not only is he wrong, that his statements were offensive, and causing a backlash and an adverse reaction to what he was saying. Jeff was unperturbed. He responded with a lot of snarky, go read the original posts, did you read the original posts, that sort of thing, and then also out of the other side of his face was saying things like, why are you worried about a post that was made 5 years ago? Didn't you see the date? This was made in 2018. And while I agree with Jeff that a post made in 2018 is dated and probably not relevant to a conversation happening in 2023, it became relevant when Jeff linked it in his original post, entering it back into the conversation and basically confirming that that is still his stance repeatedly. So I want to read the blog post because I don't want to put words in Jeff's mouth, but before I do that, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Little things like that really help me out, so if you've already done that, thank you so much for taking the time. Okay, let's read Jeff's blog post. It's called The Troubling Trend with ARC Readers. As the end of the year and the holiday season approaches, I'm noticing authors asking for reviews more than normal, which they tend to do at this time of year as more and newer reviews tend to kick AI algorithms at various retail/recommendation sites into gear. And that is all well and good, but I've also become much more involved as an ARC reader this year, branching out from doing it consistently for one author to joining a few different ARC programs for various publishers, genres, and general on NetGalley. And it is within this ARC work that I've started to notice a troubling trend over the past few weeks in particular, though I've seen evidence of it literally for years. That trend? People who will receive an advanced reader copy from an author or publisher with the understanding that that person will read it and leave a review of the book, and most authors and publishers desiring the review to be left on release day or week, and then they don't leave a review. This is not taking into account the wide variety of ways in which a reader might gain access to an ARC. So yeah, you can go sign up on NetGalley and various other sites. You can even reach out to some authors and request an ARC copy, and yeah, they'll usually give you one. But that's not the only way you get them. Lots of reviewers, especially high traffic reviewers, receive unsolicited copies of ARCs all the time. And yeah, they usually come with a request for a review and a publishing date, but that's a request. It's not an agreement. Nobody's signed up for anything. Nobody's put their name on a list. Nobody's had a conversation with anybody else. Nobody has agreed to or contracted to anything. Alright, let's carry on. Now, the various publishing agents, authors, publishers, and anyone else giving out ARCs will usually try to gently remind people to leave the reviews and couch it in conciliatory language such as, maybe you got busy or forgot, but could you please leave your review this week? Or some such. Others are quicker to remove the reader from the ARC program. But here, on this blog today, I want to speak to these readers a bit directly. To be quite blunt, I don't give a rat's ass what your excuse is. That's a bit aggressive, don't you think? For most of the programs I participate in, you literally have months, or at minimum a month, to read a 300-ish page book. Meaning, if you read just 10 pages a day, just 10 minutes a day for the average reader, you have that 300-page book read inside the month you have before it releases. I don't care your situation in life. You can find 10 minutes per day to read the book you committed to read and review. If you can't, you should voluntarily resign your position as an ARC reader until your life calms down to the point that you can. This seems to be operating under the assumption that there is a finite copy of ARCs that can be handed out and a finite number of positions of ARC readers available, and neither of those things are true. It also sounds like Jeff is likening reading and reviewing books to an actual job, and while that is true for some of us, it's certainly not true for the majority of readers or ARC reviewers. So let's put that into perspective, right? So even if we operate under the assumption you were going to read the book anyway, right? If you weren't given a copy of the book for free, you would have bought it. So let's negate the time it takes to read the book and just assume you were going to read the book all along. So the only thing we're really talking about is you reading it within the committed upon time frame and offering a review before the deadline, right? And I think that that's fair based on the way that Jeff has phrased these things. So let's say you're the kind of reviewer that all you do is pop on Amazon, leave a star rating, write a sentence or two saying why you loved or hated the book, and in compensation for that, in Jeff's scenario, you are receiving a free, let's say $15 book. That is reasonable. You know, most people wouldn't mind spending 10 or 15 minutes to get $15. But that's not all reviewers. Let's say you're somebody like Jeff or somebody like me whose review process is significantly more extensive. We're negating the fact that I've taken the time to read the book, but we're not negating the fact that it takes me longer to read the book because of the notes that I need to take. I need those notes so that I can write a script. I then have to edit the script and record it like I'm doing now. After that, the sound has to be mixed and the video has to be edited. I have to create graphics and thumbnails and post everything. And all of that takes somewhere between 4 and 12 hours, but let's cut it off at 8 and say that's a reasonable workday. So in exchange for my time, effort, and energy, you're paying me somewhere between $3.75 and $1.87 per hour. That's not reasonable on any scale for anyone. Alright, back to the article. Note that I'm not claiming you have to read every book in whatever program you're in, just the ones you've actively committed to. If a publishing agent sends you a book you can't commit to, send them a note and at least let them know up front that you may not be able to have it read in the time that they gave, and give them what you think is a reasonable time frame to get it read and reviewed. The onus isn't on me. If you send me an unsolicited book with no commitment and no request on my part, that's on you. I'm not obligated to reach out to you and clarify my position on that piece of work. You sent it to me, I didn't ask for it. And if a publishing agent changes the release date to a date sooner than you can finish the book, let them know that you will honor your original commitment but cannot commit to the new date, particularly in situations, as I have had somewhat recently, where the book publishes more than a month earlier than the date you were given. Again, that's not on me. If you change the date, you moved the goalpost. I'm not obligated to reach out to you and clarify my position. I've already told you when I'm going to finish my review. Nothing's changed on my end. Not reviewing a book you've been given as an ARC, with the full understanding that such a review is part of the implicit contract, is theft. That is an awfully big 5-letter word. Now, the author may not call you out on it, and probably shouldn't for PR and business reasons, but I'm sitting here today on my own blog calling it exactly what it is. And if I'm stepping on your toes, be glad I'm not kicking you in the ass like you deserve. That is one way to address things. Just so that we're all on the same page, though, there is no contract if I did not solicit and agree to that business deal. You sending me an ARC does not obligate me to do anything. It's only part of the contract if a contract or agreement is actually made, and that means both parties have to agree to all the parameters. There is a specific scenario in which Jeff's statements apply, and while I take issue with the way that he's addressed this, he's not entirely wrong. If you and I, you're an author and I'm a reader, are sitting down and having a conversation, and you agree to provide me promo, in this case an ARC, in exchange for my fair and honest review within a specified time frame, then yeah, we've made an agreement. That is a business deal. So yeah, in just terms, I have a moral or ethical obligation to follow through with that review or at least let you know if I'm not going to be able to do it or not going to be able to do it on time. I can see where he's coming from there. However, if you have received an ARC in almost any other scenario, which is most of them, that point is entirely moot. For most readers who take the time to read ARC books and leave a review, or who even try to do that, this is an enthusiastic hobby. It's not a job. So if we're at work and you and I have a business arrangement and I'm missing deadlines, yeah, sure, you have a right to get pissed, but that's not really what we're talking about here, at least not in most scenarios. These people aren't being paid, and a $15 book is not appropriate compensation for the time it takes to do the work. Have a shred of honor and dignity, y'all. Stand by your commitments, and if your life has changed to the point that you can no longer regularly commit to reading ARCs from a given publishing agent, contact them to let them know you are withdrawing from the program and why, so that they can replace you with someone who can commit to reading and reviewing. I'm sorry, I have to break in. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. There are as many ebook copies as the publisher decides to release, and there are as many ARC reader slots as the publisher decides to create. We're creating artificial scarcity here. This is not a finite resource. Authors, particularly the indies that I tend to read more of, that don't have a massive marketing system behind them, will tell you that a person that will simply leave reviews on Amazon, much less other sites such as Goodreads, BookBub, BN, BAM, and others, are almost worth their weight in gold as far as sales go. That is true. On Amazon, once a book gets a few dozen reviews, Amazon's AI will start recommending the book. The more reviews a book gets, the more Amazon's AI starts recommending it. Social media works similarly. With a few people talking about something results in the topic being put in front of ever more people. It's how many authors, particularly those just on the cusp of being able to write full time, and those struggling to get to that level, make money that allows them to write more books. And ultimately, that's why I get pissed off. Not only are you stealing money from the publishing agents, you're not stealing money, Jeff's operating under the assumption that you were paid for the book anyway, and that's not always the case. In fact, I would argue that's probably not the case in most scenarios. Not only are you stealing money from the publishing agents, you are indirectly stealing enjoyment from me. And now we're getting to the cusp of it. Because if an author has to go back to a day job to pay the bills, rather than writing more books, that means I don't get to continue reading a series I enjoy. So if you're in a situation where you are relying on a handful of ARC reviews in order to garner steam to get your book rolling downhill, to sort of snowball your book going downhill, I would argue if that's the scenario and a handful of ARC reviews are make or break on whether or not this is a full-time job for you, you are not ready to be a full-time author. I know nobody wants to hear that, but if that's the scenario that you're in, you have bills to pay, you have obligations to meet, and you're just not ready to make this a full-time thing. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're never going to get there, you're just not there now. If another author decides that he can't continue to write a series of books and has to focus on standalones because the later series books don't get as many reviews and therefore don't get as many sales, that means I don't get to the conclusions or series that I've invested quite a bit of time myself into. That is just how books work, my friend. Series, the later you go into series, the fewer readers you get. And although there are knock-on, almost guaranteed readers, or a guaranteed percentage of readers that will read through the series, the longer the series go, the further that audience diminishes. There's no point getting mad about it, that's just the way the business works. So do everyone involved a favor. Make yourself feel good by following through on your commitments. Okay, Daddy. Make the author feel good by helping them make money so that they can feed their families and continue to write us more books. And make me happy, yes, Jeff, because we're all trying to make you happy, by allowing me to read ever more amazing books from authors at all stages of the game. Leave a damn review, just do it. So somewhere in there, couched in rambling rants and condescension, Jeff did make an actual point that I can agree with. If you're given a promo item, like an ARC copy, and you agree to provide a review by a certain date, you do have an ethical obligation to either follow through and leave the review by that date, or let them know that you're not going to make it and why. In literally any other scenario, that doesn't apply. So most of Jeff's point makes no sense or doesn't apply to the majority of his audience. So pretty much for the last 2 days straight, people from all over the book world, authors, publishing agents, agents, readers, reviewers, have been letting Jeff know how wrong he is. And Jeff responded like this: "Just because you're in a field doesn't mean you're correct about everything within it. Quite often, your career can depend on being wrong about, or even lying about, certain things within it. This is true for almost every profession." So basically, you're wrong, Jeff's right, and if you disagree with him, you're not only a thief, you're also lying. The thread goes on with Jeff being angry about being subtweeted and basically just more of the same "did you read the article bro" stuff, right? So there's no reason to go into that. I will say at some point Jeff did show his hand. Somebody was basically saying, hey, if you're on Twitter proselytizing this position, you need to expect some pushback, and you need to expect that if you have a bad opinion, people are going to roast you a little bit. And Jeff came out with, "Controversy creates cash. Why do you expect me to care what some random troll on the net thinks?" So Jeff basically admits that he's trolling the book community, or infers that someone's trying to troll him while he's reverse trolling them, and the whole thing was engineered and intentionally inflammatory in order to drive clicks to his Twitter and subsequently to his blog. I'm not here to judge Jeff's business practices. If that's how he gets his clicks and that's how he gets his money, fine. It's certainly a common business practice. I would argue it's not entirely ethical, but this isn't an ethical debate, is it, Jeff? So let's say that you really like a book. Maybe it's your book, maybe it's a book that you've read and you really love. And let's say that you do want to help the author and you do want to promote the book, and you want to do that in a way that doesn't call people liars and thieves and berate them for not behaving the way that you think that they should be, right? So let's say that you're in that scenario. Let's talk about some ways that you can actually positively promote books in ways that are effective and arguably better than what's happened here. Jeff's not wrong. Reviews make or break a lot of books, especially small publish and indie books. Every review makes a big difference. So if you love a book and you want to see the book and the author do well, you should spend your time reviewing that book. You can't control what other people are doing, but you can control how you spend your time. So if you want to see a book do well and you want to support an author, spend your time reviewing those books. You can also talk about the books that you love openly and frequently. Talk about them in person, talk about them online. Make social media posts about, this is what I'm currently reading. Screenshot little snippets or provide quotes to get other readers invested and interested in the book. All of those things help the book gain traction and help get other readers interested and invested in potentially buying a copy for themselves. So yeah, reading and reviewing a book is probably the best way, or the fastest way, or the most effective way to support small and indie authors, but it's not the only way. And you're certainly not a thief if you don't provide a timely review, or a review at all, on a book that you received, especially if it was unsolicited. Anyway, that's all I've got for this topic. I will try to keep myself off Twitter and get back to writing, but this one really rankled me, so I wanted to talk to you guys about it and see what you think. Are you like me? Are you able to sort of pick out some points that Jeff made underneath all of the vitriol and nonsense, and recognize that maybe he did have a valid point, this just wasn't the way to make it? Or are you with the majority of Jeff's responders and just think, absolutely not, in no scenario is there ever any ethical or moral obligation to review a book that you're given for free? Specifically, I'm asking about scenarios in which you're talking about more social media influencers, so someone who has actually made a verbal agreement with a company or a person for promo for the art copy in exchange for a review. So I'm interested in what other people think about that. I know where I stand, but I seem to be in the minority here, so not that I'm trying to side with Jeff, because Jeff kind of comes across as a jerk, but yeah, so let me know what you think, and that's all I got. I'll see you next Tuesday.